a few words on the structure of the brain, and this is right from the Galati text. Actually, she's got some notes that she sent me, so I got a good bit of the images. I want to sort of make an impression on you, and I know many of you have had a neuroscience class before, about the presumed evolution of the brain, if you buy into that, from our earliest ancestors that were like alligators with no capacity for thought and planning to modern humans. We all share, of course, some semblance of a spinal cord, a medulla for you Sting fans, pons. These are the lower functions that regulate automatic heart rate and breathing and blinking and some other processes that keep us alive. Now, if a person were to suffer a catastrophic injury to those areas, it would result in sudden death. Also near the rear there, and if you've ever seen a real brain, I had the option or the honor of handling real brains in the 04-05 school year for a neuroscience class I led. And these people were just recently deceased, so it was kind of spooky in a way. We're handling brains that of a person that would just been alive 30 days prior. Just really something. And of course, the brains were kept in a formaldehyde type solution, which was vaguely nausea inducing. It wasn't the most comfortable experience. But near the rear there in purple, although it's not in purple in real life, it's in very sharp relief in a real brain. You can really see it, is that cerebellum. Cerebellum, if you think, for those of us that are ambulatory or maybe in a wheelchair or what have you, how smooth your walking or wheeling or what have you is. It is not a disjointed robotic effort. You have this amazing capacity for smoothness in your arms and your legs and what have you. And the cerebellum governs that. That's where it's responsible for physical grace. For those of you that are ambulatory, you can imagine how easily some of you may be able to bound down a flight of steps, how quick you can go, or up a flight of steps, with other things in which you're athletic or genuinely graceful. And this applies to the majority of people. So the cerebellum's in charge of that. And by the way, I should say also that alcohol goes directly there. So when we've been drinking, the cerebellum is affected immediately, and that compromises your ability to both walk and drive. Now, beyond that, we're going to focus mostly on the forebrain, which is sort of the outer 2/3, and that's where it mushroomed according to the theory of evolution. And I'll draw your attention just to a couple of things. We'll get into more detail about this later. One is the hypothalamus, which is beneath the thalamus. The hypothalamus is one of the things that's involved in quote-unquote homeostasis. Basically, when do we finish eating? When do we finish sleeping? After you've slept 13 hours, there's a point at which you just want to get up. Body balance is what homeostasis means. And in the outer 1/8 of an inch or so, there's that cerebral cortex. Basically, this is where our lobes are kept. And towards the left there, where the eyes are, that is where the frontal lobe is, where our cognition takes place for the most part, our humanity. We'll break that outer cortex, that cerebral cortex, down into 4 lobes, of course. Now, you'll notice, and again, in a real brain, this is in very sharp relief. You can see it well. The corpus callosum. The corpus callosum is sort of an Ethernet cable that connects the 2 hemispheres. And for most people, it is the case that your left brain is the verbal part. In other words, when you see something and can name it, that's your left hemisphere being deployed. Also, your left hemisphere is logical. If I said, well, geez, all people in Fresno also live in California, is that true? That is true. Can I say that all people in Nevada live in Las Vegas? That's not true. That's a logical problem, I guess you could say, a fallacy. Your left brain is logical and componential. It sees reason deficits and also can engage in much of reasoning. The right brain, on the other hand, doesn't have that naming capacity, as we'll speak of later, but it has this holistic sense. It's able to determine the apparent gender of a face in the binary sense, or the emotion. So it has a rapid judgment capacity. You can see wholes, WHOLES. So we'll focus on that here shortly. But I like to at least mention that we share parts of our brain with the lowest animals. Rats and pigeons have some semblance of a spinal cord, a medulla, a pons, etc. And it's the outer parts, particularly something we'll mention called the amygdala, that governs emotion that's uniquely human.